Hello, friends, and welcome to today's live level up conversation. Whether you're joining me live or catch me on replay, thanks so much for making the time. Let's get started.
Welcome to Level Up with Winnie Sun. Award-winning financial pro. Get ready. Level Up with Winnie Sun.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome to today's show. Yes, Cindy, happy Thursday. And it's so great to have you joining me here. Thanks so much for making the time. For those of you who are brand new, I'm Winnie, your host, an award winning financial pro, a Forbes contributor, and a CNBC council member and contributor. And yep, we're streaming here live on many different platforms. So thank you so much for being here. Jump in, introduce yourself, make yourself at home because it's wonderful to be here with you. Let's kick it off and let you know how the market's doing currently. Market hasn't closed yet, probably won't be closing for another 35 plus minutes here. The Dow is currently down 497 points, just shy of 500. Nasdaq's also down, but only down about 10 and a half points right now. And the S&P 500 is inching towards more positivity, currently up 19 points. So we'll take it, right? Anything in the green these days, we'll take it. Now, I know we've been following this story quite a bit, but as you know, today, one of the big stories is the sort of clashing between President Trump and the Federal Reserve. In fact, there's been a lot of tension there, and it seems to be continuing. This is being reported by CNBC by Fred Ebert, talking about how President Trump is once again pressuring the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, even suggesting that Chair Jerome Powell's in fact, that even his presence isn't welcome anymore. He's saying that termination of Fed Chairman Jerome Powell couldn't come fast enough. Now, it's important to note that Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has been working very hard on inflation, trying to get us through it. But on Truth Social, President Trump criticized Jerome Powell, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, as calling him too late, Jerome, citing sort of falling oil and grocery prices and claiming that the US is getting rich on tariffs and therefore, rates should be changed. Now, President Trump's comments come after Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's Chicago speech. In fact, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said that these new tariffs that have been unleashed are going to complicate the Federal Reserve's efforts to help manage inflation and also to support growth here in the United States. Now, despite President Trump's harsh tone, though, a senior White House official has, of course, clarified the Truth Social post, saying that it wasn't really a literal call to fire Chief or Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, but that it was sort of maybe in concept. I don't know, but he's saying it wasn't really literally to fire him because his Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's term doesn't end until next year, next May, in fact. Now, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has previously said that the president doesn't have the legal authority to remove him, a Fed chair midterm, and that he intends to stay put. Now, the European Central Bank has cut rates for the seventh time, increasing, of course, pressure on our Fed here to also do the same. But President Trump's April 4th post also pushed for rate cuts, calling it yet the perfect time amid the administration's very aggressive tariff policies. Now, of course, you've seen the market volatility. This has come after tariffs and also the Fed's remarks on inflation. We're seeing sell-offs and changes followed by really more speculation really of whether the policy will shift from the Fed, whether president will change in terms of his tariff stance, which we know has I guess, moved around quite a bit, right? Has toggled quite a bit. But this is sort of a story to continue to see. I think we can all agree that if more of our government officials were to come together and work together, that this is probably a good thing. And hopefully they can, talk and debate this in closed doors rather on social media, because that might be good. All right, just say. But let's continue on because there's so much going on, and our government is certainly being very, very active in giving us lots to talk about. If you didn't hear already, if you're having a bad week or difficult week, well, it may not seem that bad when we talk about what's going on at Harvard University, because I think it's pretty fair to say that those officials who are running Harvard University are having a much worse time. Now, this is being reported by the New York Times talking about how, well, the Trump administration is now demanding that the university hand over detailed records on all their international students who are involved in protests or disciplinary actions, or Harvard would risk losing its ability to enroll them at all. So, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem issued an ultimatum saying that Harvard's visa program to really is going to be tied to releasing of data on student visa holders and their compliance with coursework requirements. Now, this move is part of a broader standoff, really, between several big elite universities and the Trump administration over their policies on admissions, their hiring policies, campus activism, what students will press protests about and whatnot, and of course, claims that these crackdown targets of anti Semitism and what universities are doing about this. Now, Harvard, of course, has come back. They're rejecting this, saying that previous demands just this isn't going to fly. They say that they're not going to give up their independence or constitutional rights, even under the threat of losing their international student enrollment and also billions of dollars of funding as well. That's what they talked about just last week. Now, hundreds of international students across the United States have had their visas revoked in recent weeks, and some have even been arrested during campus protests related to Israel. Now, as you know, this is sort of an ongoing thing. So the Trump administration has also, of course, floated the idea of revoking Harvard's tax exempt status. Many universities are considered tax exempt status universities, though legally it's been said that President Trump can't order the IRS to act, which further escalates pressure on the institution. But people are saying that now that these tactics really damages the global reputation of the US's higher education system and discourages international talent from studying and innovating in America. Now, I will say that I actually talked to a family friend um, that I just talked to recently, and he was saying that in his country, it was always seen as U.S. as being the place that you would go to send your child for the absolute best higher education. But now, because of concerns, more people from his particular country are actually seeking education opportunities now in Europe and the UK, for example. So we'll see how that unfolds. But while Harvard has said to have a large international student body, it does provide, they say, equal financial aid to both domestic and international students, which reduces the financial leverage of the administration if they decide to withhold those funds. But from what I understand, a lot of these international students also have to pay full tilt. So if you're taking away some of the federal funding and then you're threatening not having international students, this could really cripple I would guess a university such as Harvard. But if you know differently, definitely let me know. I see Sadiq joining us on YouTube Live. Sadiq, thanks so much for being here. I know you had reached out to me yesterday, I think, about whether I was coming back live. So thanks very much for that extra push. I planned to yesterday. It just got so busy. As you can imagine, the market's keeping very busy. But today, definitely here and great to see you joining us live, Sadiq. All right, let's continue. I want to talk about Nvidia. Now, Nvidia, as you know, very, very big in the AI space, creates AI chips. Well, they've now started manufacturing their new Blackwell AI chips in Arizona. And they said they're going to plan to build AI supercomputers now in Texas. So they're planning to strengthen and bolster their supply chain here in the United States. Now, and many of you I know who are watching me live are going to be happy to hear about that. I'm seeing a lot of community members on places such as X, previously known as Twitter, talking about how, building more here in the United States is definitely a big plus. Well, now Nvidia's move aligns with sort of the rising fears over the Trump administration's potential tariffs on semiconductors and broader tech imports, which of course could raise consumer prices. So this is a good thing for sure for those who continue to utilize NVIDIA's chips, and also for, of course, the US population here. So many of our um, residents in Arizona and Texas now have another opportunity in high tech. Now, though some high tech tariffs have been paused or lifted, you probably heard about like smartphones and I think computers as well. But the Trump administration has hinted at reviewing the semiconductor supply chain next, which then, of course, fuels industry uncertainty. So, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang has said that U.S. production would help boost supply chain resilience and of course help soaring global AI chip demand as well. But I also saw that there was a story that came out that the CEO, Mr. Huang, also went to Beijing to meet with China as well. So maybe this can come, maybe good can come from this. That's what we're hoping, right? That everyone can come together, have more transparency, have open dialogue, so everybody prospers in the end. Now, speaking of prospering, let's continue because I want to talk about one area that's really interesting that maybe you thought of and maybe you did. Now, this is being shared. I'm going to give credit to quite a few publications here, but in particular, CNBC, NPR. A lot of people are talking about this, talking about the supply chain considerations and what's happening there. So, March, just last month, believe it or not, saw a 1.4% boost in retail sales. In fact, this is the largest it's been in over 2 years. Now, you might wonder why. Well, why that is because once the news started coming out about tariffs and how things would cost more for you and I, like the average American household, well, a lot of people then went and did a little shopping, buying things that they felt that would go up and maybe some things that they really felt they needed. In fact, auto spending, new cars, for a lot of people, jumped over 5% month over month, fueling sort of that deep dealer discounts, urgency over President Trump's 25% import taxes. In fact, inventory now, a lot of dealerships is really thin. New vehicle supply has dropped from 91 to 70 days in 1 month, with used car stock also declining. Just aren't people are just picking these things up. And automakers are trying to react really fast. In fact, General Motors is upping US production, and other companies such as Jaguar, Land Rover actually halting imports or storing vehicles now at ports instead of sending them here. Dealers are also aggressively pushing promotions like employee pricing, really pushing short term sales at the cost of profit margins. Now, that's certainly something that we're seeing across the board, but outside of the auto sector, people are also buying things that maybe you didn't think of, but maybe you did. So they're also buying like auto parts, right? In case their car goes bad. I guess I'm guessing a lot of like shops that do auto repairs are probably loading up on auto parts because they see that this is going to be necessary, but also things like gardening supplies and even like dining. People are just spending more money getting out there before, I guess, the worst might be in front of us. But consumer sentiment turning very, very much cautious as prices continue to go higher. Okay. And speaking of which, let's continue. I wanted to talk about, of course, another thing that's occurring with tariffs. And this is the idea, or not the idea, but this is not even an idea. This is being shared by the New York Times. This is a big story. And for those of you who perhaps yourself or a loved one, perhaps you depend on a certain amount of medication, right, that you need for health reasons. Well, the new administration is pushing to impose tariffs on imported medicines. Now, you might not think that's a big deal until you know that most medications are not made here in the United States. This is sparking fears of higher prices and shortages for critical drugs used by millions of Americans on a daily basis. In fact, these tariffs are framed as a national security move to bring sort of drug manufacturing here to the United States. But of course, that's great in concept because experts are saying that although this would be great, it would be wonderful to have our drugs manufactured here in the United States. So, of course, we're more dependent on manufacturing here locally. But experts are saying that this shift, although very important, would be slow, costly, and unlikely to succeed. Now, I'm not sure why it would be unlikely to succeed, but that's what the story is saying. So they say most generic drugs, in fact, 90% of US prescriptions, believe it or not, depend on ingredients from both China and India. So they're saying disruptions could severely impact our supply. So many industry leaders are warning that tariffs could lead to rationing of medication, reduce access to essential medications, and even patient harm. In fact, I just spoke with a very, very good friend, very notable physician, and yeah, and he is very concerned about how this will impact his own practice and his patients, most importantly. So we'll see. This is a story we'll have to follow closely. But do know that if you are relying on medication and you have concerns, definitely something to have a discussion with your physician about to maybe get a better feel of what could happen. And most importantly, make sure that you boost up that emergency fund so you have a little bit of breathing room, right? Hello, Carlos. I see you jumping in on YouTube Live. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to see you. Thanks for making time. Well, let's continue because the other thing they want to talk about also on the world of tariffs is what's going on in China. Now, China has made a big move. They've halted exports of rare earth metals and magnets, which are essential to global industries here in the United States, for industries such as automotive and semiconductor, aerospace, defense, in response to the Trump administration's new tariffs. China's not happy. So these exports, as you know, are critical for us to produce electric motors, drones, missiles, jet engines, they're saying, and of course, AI chips as well. In fact, 90% of global rare earth magnets, did you know, come from China. So, new export controls require licenses, but China hasn't set up the system yet, delaying shipments and, of course, raising fears of supply chain disruptions. Yet another reason why it pays to work together in a harmonious way, have good open communication, and threats just aren't good, right? Come together, have these discussions, and see if we can meet in the middle. I think transparency is very important, but transparency for both parties so there's less distrust and everybody sort of can get on the same page. So we can, it doesn't have to be one country prospering, it could be two countries prospering. Would that be such a bad thing? I don't know. I just have questions. I don't have answers. You have the answer. So feel free to jump in and let me know how you feel about that. But this is a big thing, right? Now you have two superpower countries, both flexing, let's be honest, right? Both unhappy with each other. And yet, where we're located, what we have, it is what it is. I mean, one country has 90% of this, one country doesn't, but we all need some of these things to, I guess, exist and be productive, and maybe we can come together on, I don't know, just talking out loud here. But let's continue on, and I want to bring up this before I close up here. And there's been some big changes in the space of real estate. Now, if you've been on the sidelines looking to refinance your home or looking to purchase your first home, or maybe your second home, I know a lot of people here in California are having to rebuild. Many people have had to borrow money. Well, mortgage rates, unfortunately, my friends, have gone up quite a bit. They spiked to 6.83%. Yes, the U.S. 30-year mortgage rate has jumped 6.83%. It's the highest level in 8 weeks, according to Freddie Mac, which is, of course, very stressful for people who are looking to purchase a home or sitting on a mortgage that perhaps is just too high. Now, this, of course, is escalated due to, in addition to tariffs, a lot of families are also dealing with rising costs in rentals as well. So hoping to finally purchase their first home, it doesn't look like it's getting any better. Rates on the 15-year fixed, which is usually more advantageous if you can pay off your house in 15 years, that's also up to 6.03%. Which just the previous week was still in the 5% range, 5.82% range. but nonetheless, rates are going much, much higher. So just so you know, if you're looking to do that, that's where it is currently. In addition to that, Redfin is also now banning pocket listings, aligning with Zillow in real estate transparency. This is also reported by Yahoo Finance, talking about how, you know, how pocket listings, how those work. That's like, let's say, for example, it's your neighbor and they want to sell their house and you know them and you're like, well, you know what? Maybe we can just do a deal between the two of us, or it could be something like this. It could be a real estate agent or real estate broker who has a particular listing, or a new property that's going to be coming to market, but they're not going to put it out there for everyone to know. It's going to be a pocket listing that that person will hold on to and just try to find their own buyer from. Well, now these two companies are trying to make it so that before, these publicly marketed were being shared, with the full MLS, these so-called pocket listings, but now, supporting the National Association Realtors Clear Corporation policy, which mandates that listings, be added to MLS within a day of public marketing, that you just have to do this. So pocket listings are typically used, especially in luxury markets, for privacy or to test high prices. But now they're saying that these could actually harm transparency and limit fair access. So looks like pocket listings not going to be a thing, may or may not impact you, but if it is, something for you to do a little deep dive and learn more about, and maybe a good opportunity to make a new friend, in a real estate agent, real estate broker, and to help represent you and do that deal. With that, we've got about 15 minutes left to go to the market. Currently, the Dow is still down 400 points. Nasdaq is down just 3.25 points, so it's improved some. Oh, I take that back. It's down 6.78 now. The S&P 500 is still up 17 points. So, you know, we've got a little bit left here. Tomorrow's still another day. But again, always remember that there is always another day. And if any of this makes you nervous or not sure what to do, know that there's always help out there. You can definitely reach out to a professional experience in financial planning and financial markets that can help you with the questions that you might have to get through this time together. With that, thank you so much for being a part of our Level Up community. Do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe to stay updated on all the latest insights. And that way, you know when we go live as well. And to catch past full episodes of Level Up with Winnie Sun, you can check out NASDAQ, Amazon Fire, Samsung, LG, Roku, and many other streaming platforms. And when sharing an episode online, thanks so much for tagging at Winnie Sun. I see it and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. With that, I'll see you again very, very soon. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care now. Bye bye.